Okay, the date and time is...
Okay, Anna Mason.
What's the
Anna
date?
Truly Mason,
Today.
we're gonna ask you some,
Date and time.
Yeah,
okay,
well, not necessarily time, but...
yeah.
Date.
Today is January
20th.
the 20th, 2013. And we got some questions for my mama, Anna Margaret Truly Mason. Where were you born, Anna Margaret Truly Mason?
I was born in Hutchinson, Kansas.
Hutchinson, Kansas. What were your parents doing in Hutchinson, Kansas at that time?
Dad had yellow fever, and Mom's brother said if they come out there, they could help her out.
And out there is in California, is that right?
They was aiming to go to California. It was Idy's car, but it broke down.
Okay.
Before the parts got there to fix it, they run out of.
So the car broke down in Kansas, but they were on their way to California. Then after you were born, they decided not to go into California, decided they were gonna come back to Indiana.
Better get back here.
Yeah. How long had they been there? Or just got there waiting for parts on the car? Or?
They weren't there too long. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was,
And after you were born, how long did they stay there? Just till the parts came? Or did he have a job? I guess, did he have a job out there or
no.
didn't have a job out there?
Was Grandma pregnant with you then?
Must have been.
When you went out there? Well, I didn't know.
Pretty much, huh?
Was that first one? She could have had it first one.
Yeah.
That's kind of adventuresome, driving all the way to California with a pregnant mama that's like about ready to,
On those roads,
And
Her
what
dad had died, and
yeah,
and he had yellow fever.
family
Yeah.
sort of broke up.
yeah. And then after that, they moved back to Oakland City or to Princeton? Or
Princeton.
to Princeton. And then he got hooked up with the Salvation Army. Was he working at the Salvation Army when he came back, or was that later?
Well, I was about 5 or 6 when they was going to Salvation Army.
Okay.
He wanted to be a preacher, but he couldn't stop using his tobacco.
Now, did he smoke or was it just chewing tobacco? I know he had
I
chewing.
think he did both,
He did both.
because I remember running in the car, this open car, he spit out the window and it come back and I
That's worse than cigarette smoking.
thought I'd die.
Wow.
That doesn't sound like a lot of fun. What's the earliest thing you ever remember in your life, or can you remember the earliest thing you ever remembered?
Oh, living out at Marley's farm, out east of town, out Oak Street. And they're putting Dad down in the well to clean it out. I thought that was the most terrible thing I'd ever seen.
Went all the way down the well and you couldn't see him anymore and you thought, oh, he's gone forever, huh? And that was out on Oak Street here in Princeton.
Wow.
Where are the places that you lived when you were young? I guess you lived there, and then I know later on you moved up to Oakland City to that orchard.
Yeah, we lived at the college orchard at Oakland City for, I think, 4 years.
Yeah. But before that, you were involved in that accident? Was that before that or after that?
I was in the 2nd grade when I was run over.
Okay. And the school was...
And I was 12 when I went to Oakland. I went to country school 2 years, then to high school at Oakland.
Okay. How old were you when you moved to Oakland City?
12.
12. Now, I heard somebody say that because of that accident, when you got run over by the school, that's when they started making the laws tougher on slowing down the schools and
Yeah,
stuff.
they have to stop when they're behind the school bus if it stops.
Yeah, and they never did that before, I guess.
They didn't do that before.
So you were a part of
History.
history as far as school bus laws and like that.
saving a lot of lives.
How far did you live from school? Did you walk back and forth to school from, at that time when that happened, or?
Yeah, well, I lived there on Goodale about, half a block down there,
Just down from the school, huh?
where Dick Sloan used to live. That's where I lived.
Uh-huh. Tell me about that school. Was it like, say, a one-room schoolhouse, or was it bigger?
Baldwin Heights.
Huh?
Baldwin Heights.
Oh, it was Baldwin Heights, okay. Yeah, of course, and that's
What's that mean?
a pretty big school, yeah.
They're tear it down.
They're trying to tear it down now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand they are, yeah. Been there for a long, long time. And when Carol was born, you were how old?
7.
You were 7. You were expecting she was gonna have somebody to play with right away, huh? And she
Yes,
turned out to be a little bitty old thing there. And
be
you
about my size.
yeah. You're gonna have a sister, and you could just have a
Just
playmate there right away, you know, and you end up with this
bit
little
of
bitty
one
old.
and nothing. Dad asked me, I thought he made a good deal. I said, I thought he got gypped that time.
Yeah, you for the same money, you could have got a big daughter. You know. Now, I guess Granddad Tooley was in World War I, but you couldn't have been very old then because you were born in 1916. So you
It was
couldn't
over
be more than,
1918.
huh?
It was over 1918.
Yeah. So you were too young to remember any of that, I guess.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah, because you couldn't have been more
I
than,
remember he shot a gun.
yeah, 2 years old. How long was he gone? Do you ever hear about that? He just joined right before it got over. Then I guess he came back when the war was over, I presume. Yeah. Now he was totally out of the area though. He wasn't. Where did Grandma live during that time? Or do you have any idea?
I don't have any idea.
Did you have any aunts and or any uncles that were in the Civil War?
World War I. Did he have any uncles or any brothers or sisters that were in the army, or do you know?
Never had any brothers or sisters. But my mom had a bunch of brothers that were in it.
Yeah.
Well,
What kind of education did Granddad Tooley and Grandma have? Do you remember how far they went to school? Or
Dad went to the 8th grade and Mom went through high school.
okay, that was pretty much standard back about that time, wasn't it? I think,
Yeah.
as a rule, people just didn't go to school and go all the way through high school that much. Your grandparents, what do you know about them?
Well, our grandma's Tooley's family died in the cholera epidemic. But her and her half-sister, they were babies, so they didn't drink water. Some guy come home from, I think it was in Mexican or somewhere. They told him to burn his clothes. Instead, he took them to Indian Creek out here and washed them. And all them germs went down the river.
And so that ended up killing a bunch of people, is that right?
And they
So this was,
even burned the house and
Yeah.
everything.
yeah, there was, the Spanish-American War was in 1898, I think, so that may have been what it was, because I know there were a lot of people went to that and came back. So they told him to burn his clothes, and he didn't do it, he just washed them instead. And all the germs went down the creek there and infected people downstream.
Down at Wheeling.
Wow.
It's in Gilstar's history here in
Uh-huh.
the library.
I remember reading about
What about the Brittinghams? Do you know much about them? That was on the Thule side?
Yeah.
And the Brittinghams, do you know much about your grandparents there? Or?
No, I don't know much about them.
Yeah.
Granddad, well, Mom died when she was 8. And her dad died before they got married.
Okay. So
But
your grandma died when your dad was 8, or when your mom was 8, and the dad died before grandma and grandpa got married. Do you have any idea when they came over, or when in the family they came over from England or Scotland or wherever it was?
No, I don't know.
Did they live around here, the grandparents?
Up at Union,
Up at Wheeling?
Union.
Wheeling? Huh?
Union.
Union, okay,
Union and Wheeling, they're both there right together.
okay. Talking about Dad's parents, Granny and Granddad Arthur. Was Granddad ever in the Army, do you know, or?
I don't know.
I had never heard any talk of that. Do you know what kind of jobs that Granddad had? I know that they had a real falling out there, and I guess ended up getting divorced. But do you know what he did before that happened?
He worked on the street department.
Street department. When you and Dad got married, were they married then or divorced then, or they were still married then?
They were married then, he was away.
Yeah.
Where was he? In jail?
He
He was away.
pretty much
They were just
around.
away.
It's in the papers that one years old.
He was on vacation. Compliments to the state.
He did a little
Going to
bootlegging,
town in
whatever.
winter.
Bootlegging.
Now, from what I hear, that he had sold a house that's not too far from here,
Yeah,
then got into a card game and lost all the money.
yeah, there at the end of the fairground there on
Yeah.
Coal Mine Road.
Sold the house and then was going to buy another house and then gambled the money away. And,
And this is Bill's.
Bill's dad.
yeah.
I guess he's a bootlegger too,
Yeah.
The bootlegger.
according to Mom.
Tell us about the first time you ever saw him.
There on Glendale, I was looking out the window, saw some man on the empty field. And I said, watch him. I watched him, he took something over in his stuff, and left it. Then he left, and then somebody else come and got it.
Oh.
So he was arranged for a delivery. Not- I
That's
guess,
the first time I remember.
yeah,
And then
easy
another
money, I
time he
guess.
came to our house, I had an earache when I was about 8 years old.
Yeah,
He told me to put warm water in my ear.
put warm water in your ear and that'll fix the earache.
She said I either got better or passed out, she didn't know.
And that's your, and that's, how, were your parents and his parents close friends? Your parents and Bill's parents? 'Cause when his parents were there when you were 8,
I know Aunt Bonnie, as long as I knew anybody, that was his sister,
okay,
but I didn't know him and this.
okay.
Yeah. And that was, Aunt Bonnie was his sister, I guess.
Granddad's sister.
Granddad's sister, okay, okay.
First time I ever saw Bill was when I went to the college orchard. Some boy come out there, said, "Has old red hat up yet?"
His old red
His
hat.
old red had her pup shed. And that was him?
His old red hat her pup shed.
Oh,
Oh, that's
That had whose pups?
They were just sharing.
Yeah, he always liked these dogs. Now, I
But I
understand.
didn't know who he was at that
Yeah,
time.
yeah. You know, he took good care of the dogs, though. Now, I understand that Dad left school early to take care of the family. Was that because Granddad was gone at the time?
No,
No.
they lived 5 minutes from the schoolhouse, and
Yeah,
you better be home in 5 minutes. Help me cut wood.
okay. When you and Dad got married, I guess both sets of the parents were living close by, or so they,
We lived at Baldwin Heights, and they lived out in Colburn Road.
okay.
But how old was Bill when he quit school?
I think it was in the 6th or 7th grade, I think.
Not the 5th grade. He read a lot, but after he got married, you know,
how many brothers and sisters did Bill have?
well, they were 9 of them all
There were
together.
9.
Two
And
of
he
them
was the
died
oldest.
early.
Dad was the oldest, yeah.
How old were you when Charles was born?
17.
17. Wow.
And he couldn't play with you right away either, I guess.
I had to carry him and pat him on the back.
Oh, yeah.
He had the colic.
Oh my.
And, okay, the first time you ever saw Dad is when he came out to check on that dog in Oklahoma City, but when did you meet him next? Was that
At the BMA church
at
down
the
there.
BMA church? And I guess he kind of took a shine to you right away or something like that, or?
No,
No?
Dad went first and
Huh?
said, Dad, Bill, my dad,
Yeah.
they were having revival, Dad went there. So there's the nicest guy down there.
Oh.
The next day, Mom said, why don't you go down there? Your shoes don't look too good to go up there and ask me church. So I put my old shoes on down there. So that man was white shirt, and white pants, and black belt.
Oh my God.
So he looked so cute.
Yeah.
I didn't know he'd live in white clothes.
So how did you get him to notice you?
She stood on her head with her dress on.
Must have been the red dress, I guess.
It's on the paper water.
You wrote paper while that.
That had a rock in it.
Put a pin in,
Said what?
put a pin in it.
Oh, put a pin in a paper wad.
Oh my.
Like a hat pin?
And then he hid that Christmas.
Oh my gosh. I guess he noticed then, huh?
Oh, yeah. Well, how long until you guys got married after you met like that?
3 months.
3 months.
3 months.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
And when you first got married, where did you live? Was that when you lived out there by Severn's Bridge, or was that?
Yeah,
Okay.
there was a little, one room with a porch outside it,
Uh-huh,
a summer house, you know.
uh-huh,
We lived out there.
yeah. Now, did he have a car then, or did he walk to work, or how'd that work?
I think he had a bicycle.
A bicycle at that time, and that's how he'd get to work from there. Because that's pretty far out, that's a couple miles out
Where
there.
was he working?
Where did he work then?
on the road, on the street.
Still worked on the streets.
WPA.
The WPA, yeah. And how long did he work for them?
For a long time. Till they got on at Adams Morrow. And then there's a chicken
Cardinal Hatchery, was that the
Yeah.
Cardinal Hatchery?
works there, then got on at Imge's in 1942, I think in April.
Mm-hmm.
Backing up, how old were you when you married?
20,
20? And Bill was?
22.
22, yeah.
Wow. Wow.
And I heard that when you had Fred, your oldest child, you took one look at him and said, we're going to keep doing this until we get it right. Is that what happened?
After 8, she said, I'm gonna quit, I give up. Just call this last one I'm gonna call quits. And she said, you can't name a kid Quits. Okay, we'll name it Stanley then.
Well, it took a long time to quit.
So he started working at MD's in 1942. How long did it take for you to move down to Fort Branch?
Not too long, the gas was rationed.
Your gas was rationed, so you had to get,
We rented our house to the Wolves.
To the what?
To the wolves.
Well, son,
At
I thought you said wolves.
Fort Branch.
Is that when you moved in that little house that is no longer there now, where Bill was really sick?
but you moved someplace else before you moved into that one, right?
Yeah, we did. We moved upstairs there.
It's over across from the mill thing, I think. You know that one big house that's down there they've been started working on it about 4 or 5 years? I think there's another house like that next door to it, I think.
We moved to, well, Williams's, I don't know.
It's on William Street, I think.
Well,
Some-
Williams had a restaurant there or something across the street.
Yeah. And then you moved later on down to that little house.
Yeah,
And when you were down there, it was like, what, about a 2-room house, 3-room house?
4 house.
4 rooms? Must have been small rooms, I guess.
They were
But you had a lot of people living in there. It was like
11.
11 people living there. It was you and Dad and me and Jean and Barbara. And Gary was born down there, right? No, Gary was born.
yeah, I was born in Fort Branch.
Fort Branch,
Yeah.
Joe was born in Fort Branch.
Yeah.
So
And
Gary
also
was too.
Granny was living there, and Martha and Beth and Don before until he went to the
To the Navy.
Navy. So there's a lot of people living in that little house. It was a real,
And sometimes Granddad and
yeah.
sometimes Dorothy.
Oh my God.
It was,
Was it 2 bedrooms? And a front room and a kitchen?
Yeah.
Wow.
In the front room, we had a folding bed that would fold down and a couch
Yeah.
that would make up. So that was equal to 2 beds.
Oh my gosh.
I remember they had a little shed or a garage or something out there because Dad got sick, and I think they said he should drink goat milk or something. And they
Yeah.
had a little goat out there. I remember one time me and Jean and Beth were chasing that goat around the pan trying to milk it. I think we got a little bit of milk out of it, but we weren't very good at milking.
There was an old chair out there that had salsa in it, wood chips like.
Uh-huh.
They got burned, just set it on fire.
Oh.
You had that little stuffing, Excelsior, I think they call it.
Kind of like
that.
straw, hard
Yeah,
straw
like
looking.
real fine wood shaving or something.
But
Oh.
they would say, what happened if you put that back there?
They just flashes.
Oh my word.
I know one time they had some neighbor boys that were bigger than me, and they'd get up on the roof of that thing, they'd grab a hold of the edge and swing over and go down and land. And I thought, well, that looks easy. So I got there and I gonna do a flip like that, except I didn't hold on. Knocked the breath out of me, and I got down there, I said, I don't do that anymore. And I think that's the same house where Gary stabbed me, I think.
Yeah,
We were making ice cream with a crank thing. Joe was just born, something, I was putting some ice down his diaper or something, I don't know. Gary thought that was not a good idea, so he got the ice pick and stuck it in my back.
I remember that.
And I
I got whipped.
it just came out, it's far enough, you know, it wouldn't fall.
it was, I never liked Gary ever since that.
We're never gonna make ice cream, I'm telling you.
Yeah. Cutting you off.
You wouldn't believe the stuff that's happened.
Oh,
Joe started crying when he put the ice down.
Yeah.
well, I bet.
We had one of those little lawnmowers, you know, with the rotary wheel. So you can go to Sam's down there. Of course, the blades come around,
Oh, that makes
the
my legs,
blades streaming all down.
that makes my legs hurt.
And I think one time, Dad, I had a Model A, I think, or something, had the running boards on it. I think Gary was standing up on the running board and holding on there, and Dad didn't know he was there, and he took off down the street or something. I don't remember much about that.
Your dad drove, that was an exciting ride.
That's one time I screamed. I couldn't scream, but I did that.
Oh, gosh.
All the neighbors kept her running, come running down there, you know.
Oh,
Now, that was when you lived in that little house, was when Bill was really, really sick and almost died.
Yeah,
Was he was working in Imgees then?
yeah.
No, he wasn't working, he was,
Well, I mean, had he been before that? And
yes.
I think
But they
what
let
There
him-
was no sick pay, whatever.
Yeah, nothing coming in.
he had what they call undulant fever, which is passed on by cows, I think. And he got really, really sick.
And you
In fact,
said he had to go to Chicago, or he went someplace else to live for a while?
Crawford County,
Crawford County to rest up?
because there was
Too many in the house.
too much excitement.
Yeah,
What did you do when you had no money coming in?
That's when Granny moved in.
That's when Granny moved in with all the
He
kids.
said we'd have one rent, one water, one light bill.
And Granny was working then down at Evansville,
Yeah, it's an
the
airplane.
Republic. they
At
call
the
it.
Republic.
Made
made airplanes. Yeah.
airplanes for the war.
now where were you living then?
In Fort Branch.
In Fort Branch, in that little four
Little
house.
house. It's just
Yeah.
since been torn down.
Okay.
I remember that we had that goat, and to feed the goat, me and Gene and Bess go down and pull horse weeds. They had a bunch of horse weeds in an empty lot down there, so we'd pull those things and carry it down for the goat to eat. And sometimes they had, at the mill place, they bring in corn on the cob, and they send it to the machine there and spit all the cobs out there, and we'd get some of the cobs and bring them down and burn them, I think, in the stove.
Yeah.
I remember going down and doing
That's pretty
that.
common to burn corn
Yeah.
cobs. Mom and dad did.
But times were hard down there, I guess. I remember one time, we had ice boxes back then. I think me and Gene went down to the ice house, which was like about a half mile away. Had this little wagon, and we'd get the 50-pound block of ice or something and pull it home. On the way home, we were going up on the sidewalk there, and it turned over. I said, "Oh God, they're going to kill us!" But we was able to get the wagon laid down on its side next to it, and push the thing in there,
Yeah.
and raise it back up, and got it home, and didn't tell them.
How old were you then?
Young.
I was young because I know I went to the first
Had to be-
grade when we was down there.
Can you imagine today that people
He had to
wouldn't
be
let
under
their kid
7.
even out the door?
Yeah, it had to be
think
under
about
7
doing
because
something like
we
that,
moved after we
to go that
got out of
far.
the first grade. Anyway, we,
Wow.
To walk that far today, it'd be a sin for kids to
Yeah.
walk that far
Well,
today.
they wouldn't
by
walk that
themselves.
far.
and I remember one other time the neighbor guy had a tree or something went down, and he needed some help, and I was helping him pick up the chips and the leaves or the stems and the sticks or whatever. He said, "How much do you want for your help?" And I said, what's the biggest thing I can think of? A quarter.
Oh,
So I said, how about a quarter? And he gave me a quarter, so me and Gene went down to the store and each one has got a popsicle because you can break them in two there. Shared that. And I think we bought a bag of candy for a neck or something. Woo, I like this being rich.
when Bill went to Crawford County, where did he stay? Did he
At Uncle
stay
Bob's house.
at what?
Uncle Bob was his uncle that lived up there.
Okay.
Granddad Arthur's brother's house.
How long was he there?
Oh, probably 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Oh.
And you said that he would have probably died except Granny got another doctor.
Yeah, Dr. Brazelton,
You got Dr. Brazelton to replace the other guy, or?
Priest Gwaltney.
Okay, Gwaltney was the doctor before and he wasn't very good, and so you got Brazelton and that got him headed down the road to recovery, huh?
Wow.
Then he got better and started working at MD's again. Was it about that time when you moved out to the country, or was it after that?
About that time I moved out to country.
Yeah. And how come you ended up finding that place out in the country? You said something about you went out to pick blackberries or something?
Young Bill and me and Mark, they went out to pick blackberries. When I got home, I said, wouldn't that be a nice place to build a house?
Nice place to build a house out in the country. Huh?
And it wasn't very long, he come home from work and said, well, I could get that place for $1,000.
Get it for $1,000.
And where did you get the money, the $1,000?
41 acres.
And you went out and borrowed the money to,
Did you have to borrow the money for it?
I don't know, I think he did.
Probably, yeah.
because I know he had a mortgage out there for a long time.
$600.
I remember I got a hold of $1,000. That's probably the only time you get a hold of $1,000.
Really?
Yeah, I just remember vaguely.
And then you moved out there to a little house that Lon Ivy had across the road.
Yeah,
And
garage,
started,
2-car garage.
yeah, and started building.
and
You lived
house.
in the garage.
Yeah, we lived in the garage.
With
Stored
how
our
many kids?
furniture
How
in the
many?
barn.
At that
How many
time-
kids did you have then?
At that time, Joe was the baby.
Yeah,
And
so
five.
5.
Now, was the rest of the family still with you? His mother, your mother, and his
No.
mother, and whoever?
Bill divided that, or they divided that place. She took 20 acres and built her a house, and we built one on ours.
Okay, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so Dad took the side that was closest to Princeton, and Granny took the other part and built 2 houses out there. And who helped with the house? You said it was Uncle Jim helped with the electric or something?
No, Charlie Middleton.
Charlie Little helped build it?
Helped Granny build her house. And
Uh-huh. I know he did most of the building himself there, didn't he? I think he-
Does all this ring a bell, Charles? Are you reliving
Sometimes.
history?
I remember when they was building a house, I was sitting by the log watching Joe, and this hog come up eating walnuts, and it looked as big as an elephant. Scared me to death, I cried. We laid on a blanket there, and they come over and run the hog off.
Yeah, we.
You didn't
Yeah,
cry,
right.
it sounded like you screamed.
Huh?
I thought you screamed.
Yeah,
I mean, I wasn't
probably did.
there, but.
Yeah, but you couldn't have been more than 3, and he couldn't have
Yeah.
been more than a year or so.
Yeah.
Because he was born in 43, I think, and you were born in
42.
42.
42, yeah.
Gosh.
How long then before, or how long did it take to build a house and get moved into your mansion on the
well, we
hilltop?
moved out there in May, I think, and by the time school started, we moved in 2 rooms.
How big was that house then? If you moved in 2 rooms, how big was that house?
There's 4 rooms.
4 rooms?
We built 2 rooms, and we moved into 2 rooms. And the first year, we didn't have a back wall on it, no carpets.
Oh my gosh. Wow. So then you added more rooms to it.
And this was like in 1945, because I remember after we moved out there, somebody says, the war's over, and went out and shot some shotguns at
The old man Ivory, I remember that.
some stuff up in the air there.
Wow.
I think it was old man Ivory come down
Yeah.
the road in a wagon, right on a wagon, with a
Kitchen
team of
floor.
horses.
Water would freeze.
The water would freeze on the kitchen floor.
Yeah, it was,
Oh,
I remember when we first moved out there, me and Gina had to go out and get wood to use in the cook stove. And we used up about all the little limbs and stuff around, and we had to start cutting trees down and to use for more. And sometimes we get a load of coal brought there for the heating stove. So it was always a chore there getting wood in. I remember it was like every day you had to get more wood because you just took wood and wood and wood. And then, I guess, did Dad dig a well, or was there a well already out there?
There's well already there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think there was a house, had been a house there before, I think. I know there was the well there, and there was a spring down over the hill down by where
There was
the,
two wells up to the house.
yeah. And then there was another spring way back on the backside of the place. So there was a house there before, I think.
But it ended up being a 4-room house.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, I was trying to picture it. I knew there was a living room and a kitchen, and I knew there was 2 bedrooms.
yeah.
And then eventually the bathroom,
They built another bedroom out
bathroom didn't come till
towards the
later.
street area. I remember when they were building that, there was a little bit of a problem
And that kid's
getting it
down.
totally square, and Granddad Arthur was out there, and he said, the conversation comes, that it's like a half-inch off this way or something like that. I said, well, a half-inch, that's not much. He said, well, if it was on the end of your nose, it'd be a lot. I thought if it was somewhere else, it wouldn't be anything. You know? I didn't say that, but I thought, you know, grumpy old man, you know, what the heck do you know? You're not so damn smart. Anyway, he was always grumpy like that. Pleased, you know.
I love you, Grandpa.
Oh, yeah, he was Mr. Sensitivity, I think. Well, how did it feel like when you went from being a high school girl throwing paper wads with pins in them to being a mama with a whole bunch of kids? Had to be quite a transition, I guess.
Yeah, I just had to, I thought, these kids is here, anybody takes care of them, I got to do it.
Dang, what do I do now?
Yeah.
What have I done?
Bottoms, I think.
Yeah. Well, you went from being like a high school girl with no cares at all, then you got married, you had me, then you had Jean, and you had Barbara, just like bang, bang,
Well, you're
bang.
most likely to be an old maid.
So they had this high school thing, and they said, you know, who's most likely to be, you know, most likely to succeed in those classes, and you was the most likely to be an old maid.
Really? Are you serious? Is that what they said? Oh my gosh, they didn't
They
know
didn't
what
know
you,
me.
I was gonna say, they didn't know what you could do with a paper wad.
That girl,
She's got a name with a paper wad. Especially with a pin in it. Gosh.
when we moved out there, you'd always cook all the meals on a cooking stove there, which you used wood, right?
When we moved in that garage, I had an oil stove.
Okay, they use like kerosene
burner.
coal oil, like 2-burner with,
Usually, you know.
yeah.
That's pretty nice.
And I remember we had chickens down there. I remember the chickens.
Yeah, had chicken in a tub was, so I had a tent over them to protect them from the sun. The wind come up and blowed it,
Oh my gosh.
killed them all.
Ooh,
Oh.
Then I went up to the house where they were building them. The cows that got in the garden,
Oh my gosh.
all flats.
Oh.
The potatoes did good, but nothing else.
if it wasn't for bad luck, wouldn't have any luck at all.
Yeah.
Now, when you did the washing out there, as I recall, we had a great big round kettle out there. And it hold like, say, 10 gallons of water or something like that, a bunch of water. It was up on lakes, and we'd build a fire under that, and then take that water and put it in the washing machine,
Yeah,
and then the washing machine, then after that, you'd have to run it through the wringer or something like that. Didn't you get your hair caught in the wringer one time, or something? Or how, what was the story?
I was caught in the ringer,
Oh, got your hand caught in the wringer.
and it was down the basement.
Oh, okay.
And I thought, what am I gonna do? Stay here or die? So I pulled the ringer out, carried it upstairs.
Oh my gosh.
Still in your hand, huh?
And then she come and took me to town.
Oh my
Got
gosh.
to the machine shop, and they took a big screwdriver that long and pried it up. Well, I started running.
Did you break any fingers? No.
Oh. Was it a gasoline engine on your washer, or was it
It
a?
was electric.
It was electric, but I pulled the cord
Yeah.
to stop it from eating
Yeah.
over me.
Yeah.
My dad, well, no, it's nothing with my dad. Tell me. Wow.
Now, when we'd take baths, as I recall, we basically had like, say, in the living room there, we had like, say, a heating stove. And of course, in the wintertime, it'd get red hot. But you'd heat up
I
some
think we
water.
took the bath in the kitchen.
Huh? Heat up the water in the kitchen and put it in the bathtub, and we take turns using the bathtub to everybody take their baths.
You never wanted to be the last one.
Well, I was gonna say,
Didn't
what
wanna
was
be the
the
last.
order? What was the order of taking the baths?
Barbara got to go first.
Barbara got to go first.
No, I don't know.
I don't,
I don't remember, but
Whoever got there first.
I remember it wasn't really you didn't get a lunge around a long time in the bathroom.
Yeah,
You didn't
And,
want to.
and,
It was so cold.
she dipped you.
Held us by our ears, dipped us in.
Next. You didn't want to linger around in those bathtubs for
But
very long.
the shaking off was the worst part.
one time Donnie backed up from the tub and sat down there, had a marshmallow in his mouth.
Oh my God.
Kept him from drowning.
Jeez.
After you did the washing of clothes, we had like, say, a clothesline out there, right? You'd have to go out and hang up the clothes and this kind of stuff, let them dry in the air. I guess in the wintertime, that was quite an experience. I guess the water would probably freeze and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I had some little racks I'd hang around the kitchen stove, front of the stove.
I remember you used to can a lot of stuff, like, say, blackberries and peaches, and Dad would go buy peaches and stuff like that, and you'd can those things and put them downstairs. I remember you used to have a bunch of stuff lined up down there. I remember sometimes before that Dad would slaughter a pig or something like that. And I guess that was, as I recall, it's quite an operation to get that thing strung up, hung up there, and scrape it down. And
What did you do with all the meat then? Did you have a freezer that you put it in? Or
Big long freezer.
big long freezer?
Where was it? Did you have a back porch on your house, or was it in the house proper? In the kitchen, or?
Back then we cured stuff. We didn't have a freezer.
Well, she's,
I know sometimes you get
We had an ice box in the basement for a long time.
salt it down and stuff like that.
But we cure it and put it all in salt, cure it in salt. Had a, down in the basement there, we put salt on there where we kept the fruit and the bacon and the ham and pork chops, everything would be in there. And we canned the sausage. I remember that. But everything else was cured with salt.
Remember you told me one time about Grandma praying for some peaches. Tell us about that.
Well, right after Granddad had lost the house, she moved to town there in Wood Street. And she was praying for some peaches to can. She washed the cans, got them aired out and sunned out, and Donna and Martha went over to the mill to get some cobs.
Uh-huh.
And about that time, here come a truckload of peaches, and they had the crates that was smaller at the bottom.
Yeah.
One of them turned over and spilled all out in the street. She said, "Hey, you kids gonna have all these peaches."
Oh, that's cool.
So they took all the pieces down there and she had something to can, I guess. I think Ruth was talking about that. So I guess that made a believer that prayer kind of works.
Yeah.
Specifically, yeah. I remember there were some occasions that were kind of special to you. I remember the first gas stove you got. It was like, say, it was propane or something like that. I guess that was kind of special, wasn't it?
Yeah. I went to the hospital, I don't know why. I don't know if that was when I had the miscarriage, and anyhow, come home from the hospital, had a new gas stove.
Had a new gas stove.
They said, "Nobody could cook on that thing."
Wow.
I've been cooking on it all. I had the pot on top of it.
So Bill was home by himself, having to cook on the old wood stove, so.
So he figured, this is not too great. So that one had these big tanks, I know the big tanks went out there, and just had to turn the thing on, and they had heat coming out of there, and you could cook on that stuff.
You didn't have
Had
to.
an oven, you didn't have to.
Mom started a fire one time on the stove, and Maxine said, "You don't have to let that warm up. You can put the stuff on there immediately."
Yeah.
Maxine's, immediately heat.
And then I think, when you got running water, that was kind of special too, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah,
And a
we
toilet
always had
house.
dogs. Four dogs. We had one we want to take clear up Doris. I can't think of the name of the town. And I thought that's the stupidest thing I ever heard of. Taking that dog clear up there to get it bred. When he come home, he said, "You know, they had a leak just like ours. They popped that water up to the house. I think I could do that."
Wow.
We went down there, Shelby and Gary and Joe worked it out. For Shelby to bring the backhoe up, and we just went down there.
Yeah, he was gonna have Gary and Joe dig that whole thing by hand, and Gary worked out a deal with today.
Down
Yeah,
to dig it down by the lake, it was a big hole.
Yeah.
Time you dug it and got it.
it was a long way too.
Yeah, and roots, we was trying to get through the roots, and
It didn't take Shelby long to go down there.
And then, when it was all done, I think Dad thought Gary and Joe was kind of lazy for not digging it all by hand there, and was giving them all kinds of flack.
we dug it a long time. We didn't get past the tree out back barely. All the roots and chopping the roots, and
Roots are terrible, it's hard work.
And I never dreamed of the last.
we dug the whole thing in a half a day, I think.
Yeah. Then you
Then he went
guys
to town
worked it off
and
by working for him to
used
to
the
pay for it.
restroom and put it in the water heater.
That's when you got a bathroom, you said?
What year was that?
He was accountant.
Who's accounting?
When Gene was in the Navy.
Gene was in the Navy.
1957, I think, 58, 58.
57.
We built the lake in 57, so it was after we built the lake, so it's probably 58.
Yeah.
So did you say you had a miscarriage? Do you remember where were they? Where was it?
Between Philip and Mark.
Between Philip and Mark, probably. Wow.
Now, Mark was the first one who was born in the hospital, is that right?
Mhm.
And then Stan was hatched, right?
And number one.
Went in the room to have Mark. Some of guy stuck his head in the door. "Dr. McElroy, your car's on fire."
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Didn't you say one time when you had a kid, there was two people smoking cigarettes in the dark, and you could see the cigarettes burning and it looked like eyeballs or something?
Gee.
Yeah.
Rough was the devil all out.
Now, you had Philip at home. And what happened with him? I know he was
I don't
a
know.
tough delivery.
So they had a spasm to start with. But they said he had cerebral palsy. But when he went to Detroit, they said it was spinal.
Bifida?
Spinal bifida.
Yeah. The spine was outside of it.
Spinal bifida.
I don't know whether they would have ever left Kansas or not if it hadn't been for Uncle Alfred. He wrote Dad a letter and says, if you ever want to see your mom alive, you had better come now.
So that's when they, had it on.
Wow.
Granddad told me one time he worked in the oil fields, building rigs, Mom's dad. Building wooden rigs so they could drill wells. They used to leave the rigs on after they did use them for a pump.
He was a carpenter, wasn't he?
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
He used to build wooden rigs for the oil fields. I don't know where at, someplace.
Oh.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about when you went to school, Mom. Did you have any favorite subjects that you liked better than anything else?
Anything but history.
Anything but history, right?
I couldn't remember all them dates.
Yeah. What about favorite teachers? Did you have any teachers that were basically made a big difference in your learning and all that kind of stuff?
Mr. Klein.
Yeah, I know he was in high school, right? Now, you learned a whole lot of poetry, I understand. That was because your dad basically helped you learn it. He used to help out in school in Wheeling, was it? Or? And
In the winter time when there wasn't much farm work to do.
so he'd help at the school.
They had a pretty big school back then.
Yeah. And he taught you a lot of poetry. Do you remember some of the poems that you memorized?
Yeah, Little Orphan Annie, Armstein. Oh, I remember a lot of them.
A whole bunch of them. I know you could just start quoting them and just keep on going forever, I think. I know you knew a lot of that James Whitcomb Riley's stuff, and I know he used kind of like a special dialect, which was kind of like common language rather than totally correct language.
Yeah,
And I just thought, this stuff sounds kind of like it's could clean up his language a little bit. That's just the way he wrote.
He was drunk when he wrote his best
Yeah.
poems.
Did you say that they brought in a radio one time in school? It was like a TV. You said they brought it in and had an assembly and showed it to everybody. And
yeah, so the first radio that come to Princeton, and also I don't remember what else. But I know they brought a radio there. Got all these kids from the three schools together to listen at the radio.
About what grade was that, do you remember?
Oh, could probably discern.
Okay. And there was quite a pretty marvelous thing back then, I guess. All that was coming out of that thing. It wasn't hooked up to anything. Did you have any favorite poetry that you liked more than the others? I know you had that one by Rudyard Kipling, The If, you liked that a lot.
Yeah, if, I never did, couldn't remember us that one.
Yeah. Because I know that you used to do those James Quick and Riley's things like Little Orphan Annie, you did that a lot, and I think some of the others, I think Frost was on and stuff like that. What are your memories of Granny mostly, Granny Mason?
She was good, sharing, taught me a lot.
Yeah, I know she was a hard worker. I know that when she was living here in town, I know she'd get by on her Social Security, which at the time was like about $55 a month, and that wasn't much money. And I thought, how in the world did she do it? You know,
She's a good cook.
yeah. I know she worked down at the hotel here in town for a long time. I think she'd have to walk to work down there, I think, and that's like,
Yeah, when the Thanksgiving they'd bake hams and she'd get that brown grease and make gravy. And she started putting some on Joe's mashed potatoes. No. Give me some pudding.
Some pudding?
I thought it was pudding.
what's your memories of Granddad Arthur?
He was nice to be around when he wasn't drinking.
But when he was drinking, he just changed like night and day, huh?
Yep.
I know most of my early memories of him was walking around in overalls. So, you know, like, I wonder what he looked like if he had on a suit and tie and a white shirt or something. I never did see him in one of those.
Yeah, he only had one hand. How did he lose that hand?
When we lived in that little farmhouse, after we bought the place out in the country, divided it, he come down there with a gun, gonna make Granny sign her part over so he could borrow money on it. And she called the police and they had a shootout. And
He went out in the cornfield, didn't he, over across the street? And then
he lit a match and said, "Here I am." And when he did that, they got his hand.
they shot at him, I guess, with a shotgun or something, didn't they?
Yep.
I know, he was out there, he had a gun with him.
He shot a hole through their hat.
Yeah. And they were,
He shot a hole through what?
Their hat.
Through the
Policeman.
policeman's
yeah,
hat?
he shot at the police.
Oh,
And then they told him to come out, and he didn't. And they said, "Where are you?" And he held a match up like that, and they shot at the match. And
was he drunk when all that went on?
anyway, I know for a long time we had that shotgun, they had all the
BB hole and that.
BB holes in it and that kind of stuff. And I guess he was holding it like that or something. And
He was out at our house one time and he had a sack and he hid it in the kitchen. And Joe seen where he hid it. And he went in there and he took a swig of it and he come and told me, he said, "Don't drink Granddad's pop, it's really hot."
Did Granddad go to jail for that, getting his hand shot off? Did they put him in jail or send him to prison for shooting at the police? They would today.
I'm sure they did.
I'm sure they did.
I know he was in jail a lot.
Was he?
Yeah. And
For public intoxication?
a lot of that, you know, mostly that. I remember I was embarrassed by myself, you know, like,
You
I
were
just
part
as-
of Mason gang.
just as soon that he wasn't related to me, you know.
Oh,
In the paper all the time, it's like, Arthur Mason was arrested for public intoxication again. This is number 43 or a bunch of times, a whole bunch of times. And I thought, you know, like,
You know,
He had a record for a long time.
yeah,
Is what?
It was Marthy too.
oh, did it?
yeah,
He had the record, I remember seeing that in the paper.
yeah.
He'd been in there a bunch of times like
And,
that.
you know, that's,
I hope he doesn't
I
still hold it.
thought it was detestable because you go uptown sometimes, he'd be up around the square there and he'd have like, say, some pencils and he's like, instead
no.
of begging, he'd sell you a pencil for a donation or something like that.
Or comb. He said
Or a comb or an apple or something like that. And I was, so,
I remember for a while after he got his hand shot off, he I lived in a poor farm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he lived at the poor farm for
Yeah.
a while.
Anyway, I didn't have very good memories of him, and I thought, you know, to me, he's an embarrassment.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's just nothing about him that was impressive, and I thought, you know, like, I don't know, I just didn't have any good memories of him at all.
He's out at our house one time, he wanted to ride to town, and I had a 50 Ford, and I had the front seat out of it, putting carpet in it. And he wanted to ride to town, I said, okay, I said, but, I said, don't lean back, you know, I said, because the seat's unbolted. Yeah, okay, so I backed out on top of the hill, and put it in first gear and took off, and about that time he leaned back, and me and him both wound up in the back seat. And I was trying to get out of the back seat out in front to stop the car before it went off the ditch. He was excited. Sitting back there trying to get out of that back seat. I got it stopped before
Before you hit something.
we tore it up, man.
I remember one time when we were living down in Evansville, I got a haircut from this place that's close to our house. And I'd never been there before, and I never went back because the guy's a really bad barber. So he said, "Where the hell did you get that haircut, boy?" But we didn't have much to say to each other. What about some of Dad's brothers and sisters? What do you remember about Guy? Remember about him?
Like Gary well.
Yeah, I know he went off and he came back. First he was married to Pearl or somebody, and I think that didn't work out too good. I remember he went away and came back with Maxine, and Maxine was from West Virginia or something, I think. And he seemed to like her a whole lot better than the other one. And I guess that worked out pretty good for a long time. They had 3 kids.
He lived down in the old man Ivy's house for a while.
Huh?
He lived down in old man Ivy's, the house where they lived across the
Uh-huh. Yeah.
He lived there for a while.
And I know he had, like, say, Danny and Betty and Dan, I guess. Then he moved up to
Daddy and Dan. Danny, Betty, and Sam.
Sam, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, okay. But they moved up to Oakland City, and he was working for Whirlpool. And I know that they had a TV when we didn't have a TV, and sometimes on Friday nights we'd go up there and watch The Life of Riley and wrestling. And I thought that was pretty cool. But,
how old were you then? Because I remember Life of Riley.
that's
How long?
when I was in high school, because
In the 50s.
in the 50s, early 50s, I think.
Me and Joe went down to see Guy when he first moved down by Ivy's, and they had an inside pot. And we didn't have any yet outside. You know.
Oh my God.
And I used the pot, and there was no paper around. I tore some wallpaper off. The wall. He said, "Don't tear the wallpaper off the wall." I said, "There's no paper."
That's your son.
I just little. I remember that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I guess when Guy worked at Whirlpool, you said he brought home some like white industrial glue one time. What did you do with that?
Yeah, Guy brought home a little jar of glue from Whirlpool. And I thought it was that Martell.
Oh.
Took a bite of it.
Oh. Oh. Oh God.
And then there was Dorothy. I remember Dorothy was married to Merle, and I think she was more of a free spirit or something than most of the others, I think. I don't think she really cared about as much stuff as some people, I think. But I know they were different. They lived out in Patoka. I know me and Gene used to, in the summertime, they'd have a bunch of melons out there, so we'd go and sleep on the floor at their house and go down and work in the melon fields for a while, and that was kind of interesting.
Now, is that the one that then moved to Seattle? or
Yeah, she
something?
moved to Seattle. I think Merle for a while worked at the newspaper office. He was like working, he was one of the press guys, and him and another guy would run a big machine that printed the paper. So I got a job working down there. When they come off the press there, me and some other guys would basically bundle the papers up, and some would go to the newspaper boys and some would get shipped off to like say Oakland City and Fort Branch and Princeton. But Merle was basically the guy there that through him I kind of got that job.
When they moved to Seattle, I was in the Army in Fort Lewis, and they come out and see me almost every weekend. Took me places, so it was really good to me
Yeah,
when I was in the Army out there.
yeah, they were
Good people.
good people, real good people.
Yeah. Really like Merle.
Yeah, I remember they lived down on 4th Street, I think it was, which is not too far from Granny,
Chestnut Street, yeah.
Chestnut Street or whatever. Anyway, it was all for 4th Street, I guess. And I remember Billy Merle and Jim Bob were sleeping in an upstairs room there, and I think sometimes they had an outside bath, outside toilet, I guess. And I know one time I think that supposedly Billy Merle didn't want to go out to the, because it was cold, didn't want to go to the bathroom, so he peed in the Jim Bob's bed or something.
Oh, my God.
Didn't want to pee in his own, pee there. And I guess that kind of woke Jim Bob up, and he wasn't real happy about that. And Aunt Ruth moved off, got married, moved off before you lived in Fort Branch, right?
What?
Aunt Ruth. It's-
Yeah, she moved up to Munster when she was 17.
Yeah, but that was before you guys moved to Fort Branch, or was that after?
Before, I think.
Yeah. I remember that during the war, World War II, I think, Guy and Merle were both in the Army, I think, and Don was in the Army, because I remember they came home one time, and I remember Merle had a car like a Model A or something, that had like 2 little flags up on the radiator thing there, and I thought, wow, that's pretty neat. You know, radiator thing's got 2 little flags flapping in the breeze. Now, Uncle Don lived in Fort Branch there for a while, but then he joined the Navy or something and went off. Then he came back, I think, after the war was over, and that was like when they were living out in the country
We
there.
lived out in the garage.
Yeah. Then there was Martha and Beth, I think they with you all out in Fort Branch there and also out in the country there. I
Bess
remember,
was always cheerful.
yeah. She was entertaining, to say the least. Or Martha and Marvin was drive out there, he had a Model A, which was about the shiniest Model A I think I ever saw. And him and Martha eventually got married, and he was in the Air Force, moved up to Texas, I think, and came back. Okay, we're going to talk some about your cousins. Talk to me about the Coomers. There was a bunch of the Coomer kids, right? They were your cousins.
Yep.
How were they related to you? They were,
Their mother was my dad's sister.
okay. And so, all those kids were basically living in the same town, Oakland City, that you were in?
Well, they were out in the country,
Is it-
past Mount Tabor.
Uh-huh.
They moved to Oakland after we moved away.
Mm-hmm. But you were pretty close to all those kids, I guess? Yeah. And how about Sarah and Alvin Todd?
I was close to Sarah, but she got married young too. And
Yeah.
went away.
Now, was this,
She was going with a preacher, but she didn't want to be a preacher's wife.
Yeah. Now, when she married and moved away, were you still in school then, or was this, okay.
What happened to Sarah's parents?
Well, Myrtle died during the flu epidemic, and Alfred died when Barbara was a baby.
I know they moved off to Chicago, and when I was in the Army, they lived pretty close there. And then I think later on, Alvin committed suicide or something, and she was living by herself, I think.
That was always a question, what happened to him.
Yeah, I think it was a mob thing. He was a gambler or something.
I think he would bet on the horses or something like that, and they wanted their money, and he didn't have it or something. And then the
John
logs,
snuck out to California, and they found him on the side of the road, beat up and about to die.
who was this?
John,
Okay, that was
Her brother,
her
John.
brother John, yeah. And he'd been beat up and about to die. Did he die then, or did he?
yeah, he went to the hospital and died.
And that was from out in California, huh? I know he's buried up in Oakland City there. I guess they brought him back. How about Charlie and Lily Logston? How are they related to you?
Lily's dad's sister,
Okay,
Charlie married her,
yeah. And they,
and Eddie's got an Aunt Lily Longston.
oh, okay,
They're not the same one.
yeah. And they lived over around Somerville or between Oakland City and Somerville or something. They had,
Oh, yeah.
And they lived over there.
yeah. And then Enoch and Gertrude Tooley, how are they related?
Enoch was dad's brother.
Enoch was your dad's brother.
Your dad's brother.
Yeah. And they had a son, Amon. And they all lived in Oakland City too, didn't they?
Yeah,
I remember sometimes they would come out in the country out there to Granddad and Grandma's place on Sunday and that kind of stuff. I remember them being out there when we were out there before. I remember.
What's that?
Now the Brittinghams, they were mostly, had they left the area here about the time that you got married, or?
they moved over to Illinois.
Yeah. And a lot of them moved out to California, or some of them moved out to California, or
Uncle Roy,
Uncle Roy moved out to California.
that was Mom's brother.
Uh-huh. And that was out around Los Angeles, I think. And is that where you were headed heading out there whenever you were born out there?
I think it was like Ida's car.
Okay. That's a long way to drive, and in 1916, I guess the roads weren't very good and all that. Of course, you don't remember that, I'm sure. Now, what's the story about Red Skelton? I understand that he was really a Coomer, or what's the deal?
Virgil went up to Detroit, I think it was,
Uh-huh,
to his brother's house and stayed all summer and worked up there.
uh-huh,
That was a neighbor.
okay. So he got adopted by one of the neighbors or something?
No,
Or,
he's going with the neighbor.
huh?
He was going with the neighbor.
He was going with the neighbor.
Red Skelton's mom was the neighbor up there.
Okay,
And she didn't want to keep the baby, so
okay,
she put it up for adoption.
okay. And he got adopted, and that's when his name became Skelton, I guess.
His name was Coomer before, wasn't it?
His name was Coomer when he was born?
His father's name's
Don't
Cooper.
they named him that or not?
Yeah.
Should have been. 'cause, Kenneth went and talked to Red Skelton. They looked a good bit alike.
And Kenneth, who's Kenneth?
He was my chemistry teacher in high school. He was Mom's cousin.
Coomer.
Coomer, yeah. Was that Kenny or
Yeah,
Kenny Coomer?
Warren Kenneth.
Huh?
His name was Warren Kenneth Coomer.
Okay. I think most of those Coomer kids end up being teachers, didn't they?
All but Lawrence,
And which one was that?
the oldest one.
You look like Abe Lincoln to me.
Yeah. I know Hazel and Pearl were teachers, and they were living up around the Chicago area, up somewhere up in there, I think.
And Helen was a teacher too, in Charlotte. Luther was, but he couldn't take it.
He didn't like being a teacher, huh?
I know when I was in high school in chemistry class, if something happened that would have made headlines today, but I guess that Kenny Coomer, he taught a homeroom class, which was a year behind me. It was
Yeah.
Sam Mason's class. And there was one boy that was in there, and I guess he was up, was messing around, doing stuff he shouldn't be doing. And Mr. Coomer told him, says, sit down, says, just trying to get order in the class. And he says, I'm not going to do it, you can't make me. And, at that time they was allowed to spank kids, so he pulled out a big wooden paddle. He says, I said, sit down. That kid was probably about 6'2", and Kenny Coomer was a little guy, and probably about my size, but he went out there and that kid looked at him and says, I'll take that away from you and I'll beat you with it. And he went walking up there towards the thing, and he got up there level with Kenny Coomer, and Kenny Coomer just smacked him right in the mouth and just about knocked him out. So I said, get back to your seat.
Today you'd be in jail.
So, actually, see,
Yep, he laid him out in the middle of the floor.
That's why Luther quit, he said they wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
okay, let's talk about some of your kids here. Tell me what you remember about Joe. I remember one story, I think, when Joe was young, he had,
Yeah,
his lips were kind of swollen up or something. He had a problem there or something like that. And he didn't talk really.
These two
when
front
we
teeth,
moved out in
man.
the country, that rough ground and
Yeah,
no step. He was always bumping his mouth and
yeah.
What did he say in school whenever the teacher asked him where he put his clothes at night or something?
Yeah, he was
threw him in the pole.
So,
full of foal, and then she went to get Gary, said, what's he saying?
Barbara.
Or Barbara says, you put him on a chair. No, no. Throw him on the floor,
When he was in the first grade, they come and got me because they thought he was saying his name was Billy Goat Mason.
He didn't have
Billy Goat.
he didn't have a speech impediment, did he?
Well, he just
had a little.
Yeah,
He
he
just
Front,
had
two
some-
front teeth missing, and it made him worse talking too,
Oh,
Fisher started busted his
yeah.
lip.
oh.
He was wiry. He was a tough kid. He was really.
Yeah, he was,
He was very tough. He was probably the most physical of all the kids, I think. But I know when he was in the army, I think he wasn't above getting in a fight or anything. Anytime he was tough. I was kind of worried about him.
Mark told me he remembered Joe had a friend called Top Cat. And they were at the house one time and had the clothesline in the backyard, and Top Cat looked at him and says, you think you can jump over that? And he said they just both took off running and said they just hurdled it. Says it wasn't even like a high jump, it was just like a hurdle. Just
Yeah.
hopped over the clothesline, probably 5.5 feet in the air or something.
Yeah.
Gary went to the yard with a bucket of milk in his hand and I can't do it now, my arm won't do it.
swinging it, not
Put it
without
on the
spilling it.
floor.
Didn't spill it?
Till he
Thanks,
hit,
Bill.
till he hit the clothesline.
Clothesline. You did that?
But the funniest, we had those brown-legged chickens. They could fly like crazy. They landed in the barn roof, and they fly across the garden. One of the rooster took after one. She did on the clothes. He sat there.
I missed out on that. I missed this one completely. You'll have to tell it again, because I missed it.
We had these brown-legged chickens. They
Yeah.
could fly like a dove.
Okay, okay.
And they landed in the barn and they'd fly across the garden. And one of them got in the yard and Rooster started chasing her.
Oh,
And she flew up on the clothesline. The
oh.
rooster was over.
Looking around for the chicken and she was on the clothesline. That's cool. That's cool.
But then Fred, tell them about you sticking your tongue to the,
No,
Well,
no.
I never believed anything was ever told me anyway, you know.
Oh,
And like, we had this pump.
oh.
Christmas story didn't have anything on him.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway,
It's probably
said,
the
don't you
guy.
ever, never put your tongue on a
Oh.
pump like that. And so I did.
He's going, yeah.
Yeah. It took a long time for it to really
Oh my
fall out, and
God.
that's why I could get it off of there.
Nobody came to your rescue?
Yeah, you'd think after 3 years.
Something
he had
you
to wait
should
until
table.
summer, he had to wait until summertime for it to thaw out enough.
Sorry to come with a thing of hot water.
Yeah, they poured some hot water up.
Oh,
It burned his tongue.
Yeah,
He come in with a frozen burnt tongue.
yeah.
But don't do that no more.
Robbie got caught in that electric fence.
Uh,
Bruce Robbie.
wow.
It was you that peed on the electric fence. wasn't it?
yeah. You know,
It's electrified.
these are things you should never do.
And you being the firstborn.
Well, somebody,
Somebody had to
Somebody
teach
tried.
him what not to do.
yeah, your younger brothers always dare to do all kinds of stuff. I can do that.
You ought to have been there, well,
I know one time when we
you
were
ought to have been there. So some of the stuff.
Tell what the, when 3 of your kids were in bed sick, how was it? And the doctor came, and what did Fred say to him?
well, we had like, when we lived, go ahead.
Fred, I think it was, I don't know if it was chicken pox or what it was. He walked in the door, Fred sat up, his face was red as a meat. He said, now listen, if you got another baby in there, take it back.
The doctor always came in, every time Mom's gonna have a baby, he'd come with that black bag. And he comes to the house there, and he'd leave, and there was a baby there. And I said, I got this. He's got a baby in that black bag. So he came down there to see us, and we were all pretty sick. And walked in there, had that black bag with him.
You've had enough.
And if there's a baby in that black bag, you take it on home. We got enough around here. Don't want another baby there. We got too many already.
Oh, shoot.
I remember when Gary was young, he had the rickets or something.
Yeah.
And the rickets was kind of like, I don't know, malnutrition or not getting enough
Orange juice. probably.
milk or something. Anyway, Marshall, I think it was, used to call you rickets all the
All
time.
the time.
Yeah. So he used to call
Oh.
Gary rickets down.
Oh, that would've
Didn't
been
quite
nice.
get the effect of that.
Up to the day he died, I was still ready.
Yeah, you were
No
rickets.
kidding. Who was this, Marshall?
Mason.
He was like a cousin.
Oh, okay.
Dad had a bunch of cousins that lived out in the country out there by us. There was Marshall and Jim and Harvest.
God.
Something just fell down. I guess it
It's a cord.
was not this cord.
No.
Let's talk about Donnie. Donnie died when he was pretty young. And he got cancer or something, didn't he?
Hodgkin's disease.
Hodgkin's disease.
You know about that?
Huh?
You know what that's like?
Well, I didn't have that. I had something similar, but it's same kind of a thing, I think. But I remember he was just getting to the age there where he liked bicycles, man. Told me, once you get well, I'm going to buy you a bicycle, and then he never did get one. He was pretty young. What was he, about?
13.
I took him down to the pond and showed it to him when it was dug out. There was no water in it.
Yeah.
And he picked up a flower back there, brought it up and dropped it in the flower garden and said, I'll plant it when I feel better. But it took root and growed. It was a lily with
Uh-huh.
pink spots on it.
Uh-huh.
How long was he sick? I mean,
3 months.
3 months. Wow.
Now,
We got out of school, and they took him to the doctor like a week or two after he was out of school. Before we started school, he passed away. August,
You must have had it for a while.
August 17th, something like that.
Yeah.
Was he feeling bad and stuff before school was out and
I don't
complaining
know.
or anything?
Teacher said he slept a lot.
really?
I don't know why she didn't tell me before.
He had trouble, he has his tonsils and adenoids. I think he snored a little bit at night. And that's what I thought they was taking him there, because he snored and that'd help him from snoring.
Yeah, it was his tonsils and
Lymph nodes.
Wow.
and he had a enlarged thymus, I think thymus.
And then there was Philip. Philip was unique. He was entertaining. When he was born, did you know anything right then, or was it not until later on when he had trouble walking?
He sort of had a spasm on his arm, but when he got maybe instead of walking, he would walk backwards.
I know his,
On his feet?
Or he'd crawl backwards or?
He'd hold to the couch and walk backwards,
Oh.
not ever forwards, backwards. I wondered why. When I went to milk the cow, he never kicked the cover off.
Uh-huh.
And his feet was sort of down, toes was sort of down,
yeah,
and they took him to Indianapolis, and
they
kept
did
cutting the leaders to get his feet.
an operation to do those tendons, to kind of make those tendons so they would stretch or something.
Mhm.
But don't
That
think
probably
about it.
didn't help.
But they
What
still
time
didn't
made it
know
work?
at that time what was wrong with him. huh?
They
Well,
thought
they-
it was cerebral
They said
palsy.
cerebral palsy, but that wasn't it.
I know he took him up to that
Raleigh Hospital.
Bradford Woods. They had kind of like our Raleigh Hospital camp or something
Oh,
like
yeah.
that. We took him up there
Oh, yeah.
for a while. We were taking him up there.
Could you look at his back and see anything any different?
No.
Wow.
He looked normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was kind of a little bit crooked, but then that was the way
He
he
walked with
used
a,
these,
with a walker thing.
those canes. Well, he had two like canes with like
Yeah.
wrist things on them. That's
Yeah.
what he used.
But in the pictures, he's the happiest one in it.
Really?
Always.
But he couldn't
Always a big
stand up
smile.
by himself.
Yeah.
He just couldn't. He'd fall. Or
Really?
if he didn't have the canes to lean on.
He did get to where he could walk forwards then?
He could walk with his walker, with his
Crutches, yeah.
with his
Crutches.
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 Okay.
Never.
But it's always kind of a lurchy kind of a walk. It wasn't really just like a real smooth
It
walk.
wasn't a...
And probably cutting those tendons in his feet
Well,
and legs probably didn't help it
They
either.
didn't cut them all the way. They just kind of like
Loosen.
made some slits on it so they
Stretch.
could kind of stretch out and get
Yeah.
longer.
Yeah.
Didn't
He wore
seem,
braces for a long time trying to help it.
yeah.
He was unique.
He was
that's
pretty
for sure.
smart, but he didn't. I know one time,
Wouldn't study.
No, he didn't like studying. He was already too smart for that.
Too smart for that. I don't have to study. I know more than the teachers. And I was gonna try to get him something to do so he could make some money, so I was gonna figure, well, if nothing else, he can learn to prepare taxes. So I drove him to Evansville, and we went to this H&R Block tax preparation school. And he would never study until we saw our car driving up, and he grabbed that book and he was just studying away there, and we went down there to school and we took the test and this kind of stuff. And
He couldn't pass it.
he never really
Do
tried.
the simplest tax thing.
He could have done very well at that, but he just never had any interest in that. But I tried.
The most thing I remember about him was we were having a garage sale, and and we had some lawn chairs out there, which we used all the time. But I went in the house to get something, and when I come back out, he said, "Sold something?" I said, "What do you sell? Lawn chairs?" He said, "I got a dime a piece for it."
What are we supposed to sell?
Thanks.
No.